So, you keep getting hit, keep getting knocked down, and now you're in the corner and your opponent is running a blender on you. What do you do? Not to worry, I'm here to help you survive when your opponent has you in a bad position. This is a guide on basic defense in Street Fighter 6, targeted for new and beginning players all the way up to gold level players. Let's start with the most fundamental defensive technique, blocking. To block your opponent's attacks, simply hold back. Well, kinda. Obviously it's not that simple. Attacks in Street Fighter are split into 3 categories, highs, mids, and lows. Holding back, and only back, is called blocking high, because it will block high attacks and mid attacks, but will not block low attacks. In order to block lows, you must hold down and back. This, unsurprisingly, is called blocking low, and will allow you to block low attacks and mid attacks, but not high attacks. Now you might be thinking, okay, it sounds like I need a guess if my opponent is going to attack me high or low. And the answer is yes. Sometimes the only thing you can do is guess, but it probably doesn't happen as much as you think it does. You see, most high attacks are jumping attacks, and a jump takes forever. If you're new to the game, this might not seem like a long time, but trust me, it's a long time. Even for a new player, it's definitely plenty of time to react with holding back. So at the most basic level, if your opponent jumps at you, block high. If your opponent's on the ground, block low. If you do these 2 things, you'll block everything! Yeah, I wish. An overhead is a grounded attack that hits high. These are annoying because you generally feel pretty safe blocking low when your opponent is on the ground. And suddenly they throw one of these at you and you're like, what the fuck? Luckily, to my knowledge, there are no overheads in the game that lead to any big rewards for your opponent. At least not without some sort of modification, such as a counter hit, a punish counter, or a drive rush, none of which we're going to talk about in this video. You can compare this to when your opponent jumps at you. If they hit you with their jumping attack, they are going to do some big damage. Technically, overheads are blockable on reaction, but it's not super easy to react. And so because the reward for landing an overhead isn't even that high, if you're a newer player, then for now, I recommend you just guess. There's plenty of other things you can work on that will pay much higher dividends than practicing overhead reactions. You can also try and look for patterns. If your opponent has hit you with an overhead 4 times in a row, there's a pretty good chance they're gonna go for a 5th one. Ah crap, they always get you when you least expect it. Likewise, if you have literally never seen your opponent use an overhead, then don't even worry about it. I do want to mention drive impacts as a counter to overheads. I'm not going to go too into detail on this, but I don't think there's any overheads in the game that are cancelable, which makes drive impacts a pretty easy way to deal with overheads if you know they're coming. So now maybe you're thinking, wow, blocking is pretty great. Block high if my opponent jumps, block low if my opponent is grounded. Overheads are kind of annoying, but whatever. I'm like practically invincible, right? Right? To execute a throw, walk up to your opponent and push your throw button. On classic controls, if you don't have a throw button, you can push light punch and light kick at the same time. On modern controls, you can push light and medium at the same time. Throws cannot be blocked, so if all you're doing is blocking, your opponent might walk up to you and just throw you. So how do we defend against throws? Well, you have a couple options. If you think your opponent is going to walk up to you and throw you, you can jab them off of you with some light attacks before they get into throw range. You can also do what's called a throw tech, which is when you push the throw button at around the same time as your opponent. With a successful throw tech, you will cancel your opponent's throw and give yourself some space to work with. Throws are unreactable, even at top level, so you have to guess when you're about to be thrown. Furthermore, you may have realized that attempting to jab or throw tech means you aren't blocking. In other words, you have defensive options against anything your opponent can do, but you do not have an option that defends against everything your opponent can do. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Scissors! And honestly, you should be thinking about all of the interactions this way, where you have options that beat certain options but also lose to other options. Now there's plenty of other techniques that you will encounter as you get better and better at this game, and the rock paper scissors at the higher levels will look a lot different than the one I just described. But at the most basic level, yeah, that's about it. At least as far as defense is concerned. I'm not gonna get into everything else, this is for a different video. By the way, since we mentioned jabbing out of throws, you can generally jab out of overheads too, because jabs come out faster than overheads. But that just about does it for the basics of defense. If you're in a bad position, you should look to play your defensive game plan until you find a chance to reset. Okay, lastly, I want to go over command grabs, or command throws. I wouldn't call this basic, because not every character in the game has a command grab. But sooner or later, you're gonna come across an opponent who only uses command grabs against you, and you should know how to deal with them. Command grabs are similar to normal throws in that they work against a blocking opponent. But unlike throws, they cannot be throw teched. Some of them can be jabbed, but it depends on the command grab. The most common and reliable way to beat command grabs is to jump. Jumping has a property where even if you haven't actually left the ground yet, as long as you're starting your jump, you are immune to all grounded grabs. Just remember that you can't block if you're in the air, so yeah, rock, paper, scissors. It can be pretty frustrating to get command grabbed, but just remember that if you get command grabbed, then at some point you had an opportunity to jump. Command grabs tend to have long end lag, so if you're stuck in the corner for example and you manage to predict your opponent's command grab, you can jump over them and get out of the corner. Even better might be to jump straight up, land on your opponent with an aerial, and do your fattest combo for the fattest damage. As a side note, jumping does work against normal throws too. Sorta. A whiffed normal throw recovers faster than you hit the ground, so a good player will anti-air you if you try to jump their normal throw. If you don't know what an anti-air is, that's okay, I'll probably dedicate an entire video to anti-airs in the future. And there you go, now you know how to play defense, you are now immune to damage, you will never get hit again, congratulations, go win some ranked matches or something, I don't know, I don't care, see ya!